From the TFNB Your Bank for Life studio. Now, it's time for the Smoak Show. Presented by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. It's time for the Smoak Show on 365 Sports with David Craig and Craig Smoak.
Doing this little back and forth, almost like tennis or pickleball, or maybe the way I putt when I miss a 4-foot putt 3 feet by and missed another one coming back. Craig is off today. I was off yesterday. Had a high school football game, but didn't do the show. So he's out today. We'll both be back on together tomorrow. So I know everyone's going to miss the Dragon, and I do too. But I'll see him this weekend, and we'll have evidence, college football scores, evidence, some of the FBS schools, and also the first full week of college football. It's coming up around the corner. But so Craig's off today, the Dragon. Back to Monday, and then it's good to be back after yesterday. I had a high school game broadcast, and it went really, really well, 19-0. You don't see many shutouts in high school football. Midway, it's the southern part of the Waco area, has a running back in Lathan Wissington who's committed to Notre Dame. He is phenomenal. But they kind of kept him in wraps. He didn't play much in the second half. He was fine. The game was never, over. But he had 70-something yards on, I think, 9 carries and a touchdown. It was a very low-scoring game. You see a lot of procedure calls. Rouse had a bunch of them who they played out of Leander in the first game of the year. They iron all that out. Next week, Midway will play 12-time state champion Aledo, who's moving up a notch to 6A, and they won't miss a beat. And that'll be a fun game to watch broadcast a week from tonight. So last night, the first really day of college football, there's a handful of the FBS schools who are playing this weekend, including that game in Dublin, Ireland with TCU in North Carolina, something on that in a moment. Look at what Sam Herder put up, who covers the FCS and does it like a blanket. 3 ranked teams in the FCS. 3 ranked teams went down on Thursday night to unranked opponents. West Florida beat Southern Illinois, the Salukis, 34-31. 16th ranked team out. Number 19, Southeast Louisiana, with our great friend, head coach Frank Selfo, lose to Houston Christian. And a really good friend of mine who's a coach there, and Jason Bechter. We'll hear from him today, later in the show, and what that win means for the program. So 19 goes down. And then Central Arkansas, 36-24 over University of Tennessee Martin, the 23rd ranked team. 16, 19, and 23 all last night going down in the top 25 of the SES. Here is another stat of some of the games that happened. South Dakota, a Division II team, beat Drake 38-35. The SP Plus, that's that ranking that you see in college football. This is not like the AP. This is not Vegas. But a 40-point differential in the index, and they win. Concord, Division II, 29.5-point difference, beat Davidson. Houston Christian, I mentioned that. Ohio Dominican, and I got to tell you, I did not know there was an Ohio Dominican. I do now. Division II team beat Morehead State 42-40 in 3 overtimes. Mentioned West Florida. And then how about this one? Louisiana Christian, a 15-point difference in the SP Plus. They're NAIA, and they beat Northwestern State. That, as an SFA grad, they're the Demons. They were our arch rival. I don't know if they get to play that game as much. That's the one when they fought, and the winner would take home that monstrous heavy wooden Chief Caddo. And Louisiana, an NAIA team beating Northwestern. So there we are with some of the scores last night. And by the way, what that means to me is in college football, there are 2 different levels. And by the way, good afternoon again. You want to comment in the chat room? I'll get in there in a second. To me, there are 2 levels or 2 sides of chaos. There is the chaos, of course, of what we see. And again, another ruling, of course, the Dallas judge. And that keeps it's like a hamster wheel. It's a merry-go-round when it comes to rulings and hearings and temporary restraining orders and all of that, as it is like bloodshed when it comes to the legal parts of college athletics. All right? But there's also chaos in the game in a way that you have Indiana do what they've done the last couple of years, including what they did last year. There is chaos, and there will be chaos, not just in the FCS, NAI, Division II, whatever. There's going to be chaos in the FBS. There's going to be, and I want to know from you, do you think there's going to be more chaos? And I don't think there's another Indiana, someone going 16-0. Maybe one of the Blue Bloods can do that. I don't think they can either. But do you think that there will be chaos and even more upsets among whether it's the top 25 or the Power 4 or the FBS 130-plus teams? I just get that feeling, and I love it. What's the stat that I had from Brett McMurphy of the top 25 in the Associated Press poll last year? 12 or 13 of them did not. 12 or 13 of the top 25. It wasn't as if they were ranked lower by the end of the year. Yes, they were unranked. They were unranked lower out of the top 25. So we're starting to see that. And I had a conversation earlier with Jason Bechtel, the head coach at Houston Christian, about that. And his thoughts about, I think you're going to see this across the board now, even more often, more frequently. And it's a lot of times the transfer portal. Like their starting quarterback last night was a part of the program, then went to a junior college, came back, and led them to a win in that game last night against Southeastern Louisiana. Now, one other quick note. Art Briles, the head coach at Eastern New Mexico. We had the AD, Kevin, on last week. And they were beaten last night. They lost to New Mexico Highlands 35-34. With a minute and 40 seconds or so to go in the game, Eastern New Mexico scored to cut the lead to 35-34. Briles went for two. They didn't make it. And New Mexico Highlands wins that game. And so the opening debut of Art Briles at Eastern New Mexico. There are games this weekend. One of the ones that's the highlighted game is TCU and North Carolina. TCU's had a little bit of this drama among the credentialed media from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram and TCU athletics over a story about that fight they had in the locker room. I've talked to a lot of people, and I still don't know the truth. I did hear from a good friend of mine, Roger, back and forth with me on Twitter, direct messages, but I still don't know exactly. But they have to iron that out. Otherwise, who's going to cover? Who's going to cover TCU? The morning news will occasionally run something, but again, newspapers are different now. It's all online, most of it, almost like all of it. When I go to a convenience store to go pay, I need to get a receipt for having a tank of gas, I fill it up, and I hate it. Drives me nuts. Pet peeve. To get gas and go to get the receipt, and it says clerk has the receipt inside. They're like, would you put paper in these machines? Happens more often than not. So I don't know what's going to happen here with this, I guess, credential access ban. It cannot go on for too long with the Fort Worth Star-Telegram and TCU. Here's a shot of TCU's faithful, including players in the forefront. And you see Sonny Dykes right there. He's in the third row, as they are a bunch of fans. TCU will travel well. Sometimes they'll travel well better than they have games at Amon Carter, and that's not a cheap shot. It's true. And they are in Dublin, Ohio. This is one of those where they had plenty of time. People had plenty of time to get tickets, to get their airline fare, to get set up, and, of course, travel agencies doing that as well. They are in Dublin, Ireland, and I said Ohio again, Dublin, Ireland, for that game. Here is also the helmet that TCU is going to wear. It is the TCU helmet. By the way, you see the shark teeth or whatever they have, that jagged white that they are doing as well. They have the clover, right, on the horned frog. And that's the helmet that TCU will wear in their game against North Carolina. So let's get to some football that's not just going to happen. This is not a surprise whatsoever, although this was a pretty good competition. Rich Rodriguez, we asked him about this at Big 12 Media Days. West Virginia has named former Oklahoma quarterback Michael Hawkins the starting quarterback. I'd like to hear from our West Virginia Mountaineers fans, and we have a lot of them that watch, are also inside the chat room. Michael Hawkins was a very athletic player. I saw him 2 or 3 times. I saw him when he was at Oklahoma, and I hit and miss. He can run, but remember, he had to play against Texas, and it didn't go very well, or he ended up playing a little bit against Texas. Mateer probably wishes he wouldn't have. And Michael Hawkins now the starter, QB1 for Rich Rod and also West Virginia. Jackson Arnold started out as a quarterback at Oklahoma. He then played for Auburn. I saw him up close and personal at McLean Stadium as an opening game last year when Auburn beat Baylor in Waco, and Jackson Arnold had himself a day mainly with his legs. He is now the quarterback to start for UNLV and Dan Mullen when they open up Saturday against Memphis. Mullen making that announcement on his radio show this week. I know there's the story involving BYU and Kalani Sitake, AD Brian Santiago, and the power shift within the athletic department. I also know we're going to have Dick Harmon, who's covered BYU for the Deseret News for longer than anyone else. He's going to join us today at 3:40 to give us his insight on that. But there's also a story today that I saw with the newspaper in Salt Lake City that this is about the coaching staff at Utah. Some are still around, but most, of course, are not. A chunk left with Kyle Whittingham to Michigan. Jason Bataco had this story about players saying that they were threatened, not threatened, they felt pressure to play through injuries. There's the story by Jason. They threatened to put someone else in front of me. They'd even threatened to take away my scholarship. That's a quote from one of the players. This is not sources. These are quotes from players on the record. Zach Barnett and I both will discuss this a little bit later on when he joins us at 4:30. 6 former Utah players from 2020 to 2024 shared alleged accounts of pressure to play through injuries and medical misdiagnosis. There's a full story by Jason. You can read it if you want. And there are stories that have a lot of truth to them that are through sources, through anonymity, to protect people's whatever. And I know that a lot of times those sources or the anonymous and anonymity, they're telling the truth. Then you also wonder, these guys are all on record here. So that's an interesting story with now, of course, Morgan Scalley, the head coach, and Whittingham in Michigan. All right, I want to make sure, Rez, by the way, running the ship solo this afternoon. Let's go to, and I know this was a story from yesterday, but the BYU and Kalani Sitake and Brian Santiago power struggle. I was at a football stadium. I believe I set up my laptop, and then I looked at this and I went, whoa. I don't know what your reaction was. I know Craig talked about it at length yesterday, and again, Dick Harmon will join us today, and he will discuss it with us at 3:40. BYU announced that Kalani Sitake no longer reports directly to AD Brian Santiago instead of University Vice President. Santiago will oversee the remaining programs in the athletic department. And then Brett McMurphy, it looks like Kalani won that one. And then on top of that, this is from Brett McMurphy as well, when he talked to someone that said, this is a Band-Aid fix for a bigger, long-term problem that will ultimately come down to choosing to us. This is from inside BYU. Ultimately come down to us choosing Santiago or Sitake, a source telling Brett McMurphy. So I saw that and I was like, man. And so I know it was discussed quite a bit yesterday. Dick Harmon from the Deseret News will join us today in about 25 minutes or so. A couple of other stories in college football. There has always been this, how should the schedule look like in college football? Should they start a week early? should there be schedules that open up a couple of bye weeks to make it easier to maneuver and change or get games on schedules? Well, Chris Vanini, theathletic.com, had this one earlier today. This came out this afternoon. The FBS Oversight Committee announces the following college football changes for the upcoming year, not this year, but 2027. 1, the season start moves up from what is now week 0, no more waivers. Spring practice can now be 2 OTA-like periods totaling 21 practices, and OTA is off-season training. That's a term that came from the NFL. And 3, the January transfer portal window now is 10 days. Is it? Shrinks. So those are 3 different calendar changes in FBS football, including playing the games. For example, there would be a lot more games like the week before when most people start. You can consider, I guess, this week with week 0. And then there's the Dallas judge. A Dallas judge granted a temporary restraining order earlier on Thursday, I believe, for several college athletes, granting them an additional year of eligibility. The temporary restraining order, TRO, names the NCAA, but look at this. The SEC and their commissioner, Greg Sankey, as defendants. And what that also now means for Sankey is that he would have to appear in court to explain why athletes, these specific athletes that are listed in this lawsuit in the temporary restraining order, why they shouldn't be eligible for this season. So when the Big Ten said no more, and then the SEC the next day or later that day, no more. And then, hey, the Big 12, day I was gone, they were like, no, we're including football, European, international, basketball, whatever. No more. And the ACC, I think there's one conference that is not joined in on that particular, like, they're not playing anymore. You go to a training camp, you do anything, whether you're on a roster or not, there's a lot of, everything's written a little bit differently. The Dallas judge is saying that no, we need to discuss this. And the players who thought in the last 5 to 7 days, no, you can come back. You're in an NFL camp. You may have even signed maybe a contract. There's still the little tiny small print of who can play. And you would think it's pretty simple, but it's not, because here's a temporary restraining order. And so now that Greg Sankey would have to appear in court to explain why these athletes who thought they had extra year, and remember, they kind of came in clumps. Like even the Colorado decision was a little bit wider. The Louisiana decision was a certain amount of players, or other states that have had this, and now there's still going to be, like for example, Judge Martin Hoffman. As long as they would have been eligible to continue playing college sports in the following semester, if they had a 5th year of eligibility, they are eligible today. And I saw where, for example, there are schools that were football teams that were recruiting players who have been in the NFL in whatever variety of ways, mainly the guys that were not drafted, or those who have been in training camp or at off-season workouts, but were not on the 90-man roster or had not really signed what is you're a part of us contract. And now that changes again. So stay tuned for that. We had Matt Rule on the show this week, Nebraska football coach, and a whole bunch of fans have watched and viewed that interview. We appreciate that. One other note about Matt Rule, Trey Wallace, our good friend from Fox, had this nugget. He was on a Fox podcast. Rule sounds the alarm on NFL returnees and saying $45 million rosters and college football's payroll problem. Quote, I think if I'm an NFL player and came back, it would be twice, if not 3 times better than they were. In other words, if you're a player in college and you are no longer going to play in college, you go to the NFL and you go work out, you go through the offseason, you even go through the training to get ready for the NFL combine and the draft and personal workouts and more. If you go through all of that, if you're an NFL player who went through all of that, came back to be a part of a college team, it would be twice, if not three times better than they would be 2 or 3 times better than when they left, when their eligibility, they thought, in college was over. Rule went on to say, we got to get rid of NIL. Not technically what is NIL. Call it a payroll. That's what it is. It's no longer NIL. There is some legitimate NIL. Well, that's what Matt Rule was saying. There's another quote in here. While some might wonder how much better a fourth-string player participating in the NFL camp would actually be when he returned to college, he said they would have considerable and considerate advantage over players who have been practicing at the college campus. Twice as good. I mean, I think the hardest thing, when you're coaching these guys is you're always telling them, hey, guys, do this. This is what it's like on the next level. Half of it is like as a kid, they're kids, right? Just like the growth you make. And I remember a story about that with him, with Denzel Mims. I'll give that to you. They train for the combine. They train in a pro facility. An agent pays for their meals. Train with NFL teams and 4 tryouts. They had training camp. I think if an NFL player came back, it would be twice, if not 3 times better than they were when they left. Now, one of the keys to what he said about just get rid of the term NIL, and it's a payroll, I wonder if that could be used in any kind of upcoming hearings when it comes to what's happening with college football and also players. Here's a note. I mentioned I was out yesterday with a high school football game, and then starting next week, I have like 8 consecutive weeks or whatever on Friday nights. So I'll be out Friday nights. Craig will do the Friday night show solo, Friday afternoon show solo. And again, my game was 19-0. It was sluggish. It was okay. Took care of business, Midway beating Rouse. How about this one? There was a mega banger high school football game at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas last night. South Lake Carroll won multiple state titles. And Jenks out of Oklahoma, one of the powerhouses in the country. South Lake Carroll was down 27-0 in the first half. I remember seeing that score. I'm like, I think I looked at the score on my app, and it was 20-0 Jenks. Jenks is really good. South Lake Carroll's really good. First-year head coach this year. Jenks was up 27-0. South Lake Carroll came back to win the game, and wanted to show that because those are 2 high-level high school football teams, and a game it must have been at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. I did a high school game in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl. We were set up to go in the nice press box. Of course, that's a huge stadium. Texas OU's played there. The Cotton Bowl used to be there. I love it. It's old school. And we did a game there, and it was Midway playing. It was Lake Ridge, Mansfield Lake Ridge. And they got the game going. It was kind of some stormy weather. They got the game going, then it got delayed because of lightning. And they got the game going again after a 30-minute wait and a little bit of a warm-up and lightning. So everybody was back in the locker room, and I think they came out and ran a handful of plays, and guess what? Lightning at the Cotton Bowl. That's the only high school game I've ever broadcast inside the Cotton Bowl from the press box in the Cotton Bowl. It is a still storied stadium. And, of course, Texas and OU fill that baby up, and it is awfully special whenever they do. Let me give you one more note. I did a game when it was 2005. I was broadcasting Lee High School in Tyler. They had just won the championship, and back then the biggest division was 5A. It's now 6A. Lee won. They beat Spring Westfield in the Alamo Dome in San Antonio to win the state title. And the next year, they had what started out as what we see now. Duncanville might play somebody out of Georgia, or DeSoto might play somebody out of California, and the Texas school. And Lee High School, now Legacy, played a home game against Chaminade Madonna out of Miami. And at the time, Chaminade Madonna was really good. Now they're, I think, even better. It was a game that ended at about 1 o'clock in the morning because of some delays. But you have a team that flies in to play this game in Texas. And even with the delays, you have a certain amount of time before you just can't play. They beat the deadline of when the game could restart or get going. And then the game went double overtime. And Lee winning the game in double overtime when Jason Williams had a huge game running back who ended up playing at UTEP. And they won that game. But those lightning delays, I know what they're doing. They have to do the 30-minute delay. It is a nightmare because those games can go a long, long way. All right, when we come back, we're going to hear from Mark Harmon from Deseret News in just a moment. I do have a couple of other notes. I started this, and then I got kind of away from it when it comes to some nuggets, college football nuggets. Here it is. Alabama. 12 of Alabama's 13 FBS games last year came against FPI top 40 opponents. Now, there's always the argument about, so how do they put together these indexes? I had mentioned some of the spreads for the games earlier in the FCS with upsets. That was the most last year this is from the FPI, Football Power Index. 12 of their 13 FBS games were against top 40 opponents. Now, you can argue, it would also be an argument that has to be heard about, well, they stack the SEC into these top 25s, AP, coaches poll, whatever. And then, of course, that means all of them are ranked high because they're going to be. But 12 of the 13, they went 8-4 in those games, outscoring their opponents by a combined total of 2 points. 2. Nick Saban's final 5 years with Alabama against FPI top 40 teams, he was 34-8. And there's that dip that Alabama, which had to happen when Saban was going to retire. And they outscored each of those teams on average by 13.2 points per game. There's a nugget. Here's a note. We've discussed that Alabama could not run the ball well. They just couldn't run the ball very well. They averaged 3.85 yards per carry. And I'm not talking about like quarterbacks scrambling, flush from the pocket, not that kind of rushing yards. 3.85 yards per carry. They were 129th out of 136 FBS teams in average yards per carry. They were 129th out of 136 FBS teams in average yards per carry. Keywan Lacey, Ole Miss, phenomenal player. He was in on 835 offensive snaps last year, 149 more snaps at running back than anybody else playing the running back position in FBS. 149 snaps, on average, it's about extra 10 and even more per game, depending on if you get in the playoff, bowl game, whatever. He is the third back with more than 800 offensive snaps in the past 5 years. The only SEC player with more rushing attempts in a season besides Lacey's 306 was Derrick Henry, and he had 395 back in 2015. Missouri's defense had the fewest career snaps played of any Power 4 unit. Now, this is a lot. Now, 8,320. There's people who come up with this. Iowa had 8,843 career snaps of experience. This is Iowa coming back for this team this year, 2026. They have the fewest 8,843 career snaps. That's career snaps. The fewest of any Power 4 team in the FBS this season. Let's see. And Iowa, a team that gets picked on because we know about the offense that struggles, and Ferentz is tried to turn that corner a little bit. And I think it was Cignetti that talked about Iowa last year. Now, again, it's kind of like an SEC coach talking and propping up a team in the middle of the pack or lower. But Iowa had 4 losses last year by a combined 15 points. One of 5 teams in the FBS that did not lose a game by more than 7 points at all last season. Now you flip the switch on that, and man, you're 11-1, or you're in the championship game, if of course you can. Tennessee had 3 losses. Where's General Ursus? Tennessee had 3 losses last year by a touchdown or less to teams that won 9 or more games. General Ursus, did you hear me? Tennessee had 3 losses by a touchdown or less to teams that won 9 or more games last season. So they were in the mix, but they couldn't finish it. Here's one other note about Clemson. And then I got a note about Avery Johnson, Kansas State. From 2011 to 2021, Clemson was 32-7 with a -3 turnover margin in 1-possession games. From 22 through last season, Clemson was 9-8 with a -3 turnover margin in said games. So they're not winning those even when they have a -3 turnover margin. They used to be able to overcome that. They were just so much better. And then here's an Avery Johnson note. In the playoff era, only one Big 12 quarterback, I should have asked this as a trivia question because it's not trivia today. In the playoff era, which means 2014 and beyond, only one Big 12 quarterback with a minimum of 300 dropbacks has posted consecutive seasons completing less than 60% of their pass attempts. And that's Kansas State's Avery Johnson. One quarterback in the last 12 years or so, 300 dropbacks, or even if you're in the shotgun, and completed less than 60% of his passes. The thing about Avery Johnson, he's explosive. He can go the distance on any snap. But at the same time, I always mention this, and I know sometimes K-State fans would get their, like, they were really looking forward to the change, right? Old quarterback says, I'm going to Ohio State, wins a national championship. But Avery Johnson was the next man up, or he was the guy that everybody wanted. But I still have always wondered about his accuracy. That doesn't mean you have to complete much more, but I still wonder that it's not like in the games back and forth. It's when it's crunch time. You got that when you're completing less than 60% of your passes, it's crunch time. There's a second or third and 8. That's when you look at the accuracy, and it also gets to be a problem. All right, we're going to come back with Dick Harmon, Deseret News on the power struggle. And I said that to somebody last night at the stadium doing the high school game, and they made a pretty good point. What's the power struggle? Kalani Sitake and Brian Santiago were obviously not on the same page, and some of the concerns from the fans were he was promised a lot, but then all of a sudden was Santiago in the athletic department or the university delivering. So we'll talk to Dick about that and really what all this means and what's the end game here. And how can an AD keep, and we've had Brian on the show, we've had Kalani on, we obviously a bunch. But the power struggle, is there a power struggle? Because Kalani appears to now have, if there's friction there, or there's tension there, or there's some disagreement there, or there are problems there, or all of the above, he doesn't have to deal with Santiago, who runs the athletic department. So we'll have Dick Harmon on with that. When we come back, Dick Harmon, Deseret News, thank you for your time. We appreciate your time. I wasn't here yesterday, so I couldn't talk about and endorse and tell you how much I love what I've been able to have happen to me since my first treatment. After a free consultation with QC Kinetics, I mentioned a viewer who has had a couple of different back surgeries, who went to QC Kinetics down in Houston, and they have worked out a plan. The lead physician is asking his endocrinologist, to agree with the procedure to make sure that high blood pressure and elevated A1C, that's not going to be a problem. He is tired, worn the blank out, miserable that back surgeries have not made him or helped him feel better and live the life he wants to live. He's about my age, by the way. I'm 67. He went to QC Kinetics. He heard me discussing what they've done to me, what they've done for me. In September, It had been 4.5, 5 years since I had jogged. It was not even on my mind. I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. And then I went there in September, got a free consultation, QC Kinetics up in Dallas, multiple locations. We'll get to their numbers in a minute in both Houston and Dallas. Sat down with them, and they went over the procedure and why it works. And I'd heard about it from a good friend of mine that does radio in Dallas, RJ Choppy. They will take your natural biologics, what is inside your body, natural biologics inside your body, inside your blood, plasma, platelets, stem cells, bone marrow, and use that to treat you and heal you and help you not just feel good for a little bit, feel good, and that's the way you're going to feel. I cannot tell you how many times I used to get out of bed and I was immediately hit with this pulling, tugging, aching right hip. Had MRIs, no structural damage. Nothing. It just was that way. So finally, I'd had injections. They kicked the can down the road, steroid injections. Finally went up to QC Kinetics, sat down with them. They told me the plan. They told me what they do. They told me about the treatment. There's no surgery, no procedure. This is them using your natural biologics inside of your blood. And I had my first treatment in September, and then you have to wait like a month or so, and then I had my second one. The first two were exactly the same. Then the third one was I had inside my back of my hip, my left hip, they drew out bone marrow stem cells. Really unique feeling, no pain. And then they spin that and they inject it back in wherever you have problems, shoulder, elbows, ankles, wrists, neck, back, waist, knees. And they did that to me. And I was like, whoa. And then I had another treatment. There's 5, and I haven't even used the 5th one because I haven't needed it. Now, that's been like 6, 7, 8 months ago, my last one. And now I run today 4 miles. Yesterday, 4 miles. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, every single week, I'm running 4 miles. Each day, 15 a week. Take the weekend to relax, play golf, but I don't have pain when I'm playing golf. And I don't have that next night. There's some soreness occasionally, but there's not pain. And I told you the story about a viewer that lives in Houston and what he's about to do. QC Kinetics, multiple locations, and here are the numbers to call in Dallas and Houston, 972-8610, and in Houston, 713-913-5285. Believe me, I thought it was over, not over for me. I just thought I was going to feel the way I felt for 4.5 to 5 years, and I don't, and I haven't for months. And I want you to have that same type of feeling and get over whatever pain that no matter what they've said to you, even if there have been surgeries or procedures that hasn't worked, try and get in contact. Free consultation, QCkinetics.com.
Broker is your Lennox Premier dealer. Right now, qualified buyers can make no payments and get no interest financing for 12 months on a new Lennox home comfort system. Conditions apply. Call Ray Broker Air Conditioning and Heating Specialists for details and a free estimate.
Make this the summer event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive a 2026 Ram 1500 Limited Crew Cab with your choice. 0% for 36 months or 25% off MSRP. See why it was named to Car and Driver's Best 10 Trucks and SUVs list. And it comes with America's Best Truck Powertrain Warranty, 10 years, 100,000 miles.
Come by, let's be friends.
Bold are the adventurous. Determined are the leaders. Faithful are the healers. At Baylor, you'll find your calling, your people, and your purpose. Dare to be you, indeed.
It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Serving Central Texas since 1889, TFNB Your Bank for Life takes pride in being more than a bank. TFNB, we remain committed to these principles. If you value them too, come join us. TFNB, your bank for life.
This 3 o'clock hour is brought to you by QC Kinetics. Feel better, move better, live better with regenerative medicine using your body's own healing abilities for natural pain relief. No surgery, no drugs, no downtime. With locations in Dallas and Houston at QCkinetics.com. It's time for the Smoak Show on 365 Sports with Craig Smoak and David Craig.
All right, we're back. 365 Sports. Craig is out today. We will have today at 4:30 Zach Barnett on many things, and he has a prediction about John Sumrall at Florida. Not so much for this year, but a prediction about that. Houston Christian winning that game last night against ranked Southeastern Louisiana, and their head coach John Bechtel. We had him on and spotlighted the program. It was last year, and he'll join us a little bit later on in the show today as well. And Todd Whitten, head football coach at Tarleton State University. Man, they have done a phenomenal job there at Tarleton State University, and he will join us today in maybe 20 minutes or so. Rez, go ahead and call Dick Harmon, because he had mentioned that he was having some issues with his camera earlier in the day. So not sure if he still is or what, but we need to get him on. We got a tight schedule today with the show that we have coming up today. How much? PJ Worthen, good to see you, PJ. Appreciate you. You've been in the chat with us, watching the show a lot. Robert E. Lee, Tyler Lee, that year also played Coleraine out of Ohio, and yeah, they did. That was the Kirk Herbstreit. That's when Kirk Herbstreit really kind of to get really popular, and he started a Kirk Herbstreit high school football classic in Columbus. And Coleraine out of Cincinnati, really good team. Beat Lee in that game. Lee ended up that year, I think they ended up going like 5-5 or whatever it was and missed the playoffs. But yeah, they played 2 teams out of state the year after they won a state title. And I just thought that was cool, because I just thought about it was cool. So yeah, thank you, PJ, for reminding me of that one. Coleraine had a quarterback that could run the zone read very, very well. But they had lost a lot of players. Lee had the year before a senior-laden team. And, okay, Rez, got him. Okay. I should have checked with Dick, because I looked at the time zones, and I thought that the hour difference, I know sometimes in that area it could be an hour or two, and so Dick Harmon joins us, Deseret News. Dick, I'm sorry.
That's
Appreciate
fine.
your time. Appreciate you being a part of the show today. So how would you describe this Kalani Sitake and Brian Santiago? Is it a power struggle, or is that over now because of the decision yesterday that he doesn't have to report to Santiago?
You know, there's been friction. It's been well publicized that there's, been issues. But a lot of those issues have gone on for 10 years. That kind of culminated when he was looking at Penn State and looking to go. And then they came in and said, no, we don't want you to go. And some people got together and they made it happen that he would stay here. He's made certain promises. Some of those still haven't been, actually brought to pass. And so, there's been a head to this summer where things needed to be taken care of. I think what we're running into, Dave, is a situation where BYU athletics and the athletic director role is outdated. NIL, revenue sharing, roster acquisition, recruiting, recruiting evaluation, really working with a lot of free agents, having budgets for NIL, and how do you distribute the revenue sharing? Part of that is 21 million, may go up. A lot of people are obeying that. Some are not holding to that. Some are going way over that. BYU has decided that they would be pretty strict on the 21 million. So a lot of those issues have been thrown around, and a lot of it has been challenging for BYU. And I think this move by the administration is a way to get that back into control, get an organization that works and functions more like an NBA or NFL management system. And that's what they're trying to create. This is just the first step. And I think moving towards that by separating this.
Is BYU playing with fire with Kalani?
BYU moves slow. Traditionally, BYU is very slow at getting things done. Everybody has somebody they report to. They say, "Oh, I can't make that decision. Somebody else is going to need to do that," and that's just the way it operates. And so it's very slow. He agreed to a contract December 3rd. I think they probably signed that in ink about May 29th or 1st of June. That's a long time to go without an actual signed contract. You're operating on your past contract, but that's just the way things work around here.
All right, so we've had Kalani on many times. Even the year before they joined the Big 12, they played a game in Waco against Baylor. Baylor won the game, but I don't know of anybody that doesn't like him. I'm not saying that there aren't some, but he just seems to be the soul of the earth. We've had Brian on as well. Is this one of those where people are picking who's most important in this battle between the two, between Kalani and Brian Santiago?
That's a good question. I know both of these guys. My father and Brian Santiago's father, Frank, watched football games back in the Lavelle era. They would go there and put lawn chairs out and watch things. I covered Brian's brothers, Kevin and Todd, basketball players at BYU under Roger Reed. So I've known Brian and his family for a long, long time. Great respect for him, great passion, a tremendous competitor. Kind of a bull in a china closet at times. He wants to get his way. He's fought hard for BYU basketball. You can see the results. They did overpay for the roster, I think, the last year and underachieved, but he's fighting for basketball like crazy. I don't know that he's always fought that hard for football under Kalani, and that probably kind of tweaked him off a little bit as he saw that Kevin Young at BYU basketball gets a lot of stuff, kind of a blank card. He goes out and wants to get Kalani wants to get Quincy Porter from Ohio State, a 5-star receiver. He's told there's no money for that. You kind of had your money, and so Troy, they don't even get in that game with him. He goes to Notre Dame. Kalani Sitake, I've known his father since I was 14 and he was 16 in Tonga. I lived in Tonga. I've seen the place where Kalani was born in Nuku'alofa. I've known him since he was in high school at Kirkwood in St. Louis, Missouri, when he was known as Kalani Fafita, the second cousin of Noah Fafita.
Wow.
So that's how long I've known these two people and the two personalities involved. And you've described Kalani right to the T. They're kind of different people. And I think for 10 years, it's been a little tough for both of them to get on the same page at times. But the last practice they had last Tuesday, they were at football practice. They were hugging. I saw Kalani and Brian Santiago hugging as they came off the field, and I had about a minute to talk to Brian. He says there's a lot of negativity going around, but we want to be positive. There's some great things happening in our programs, and we want to be positive. So that's the last conversation I had with Brian last Tuesday.
Do you think that a general manager in football would make any difference at all? Because, we've seen that now. That's kind of the it thing. Do they have one at BYU? I don't know that.
They have some administrative structure. They have a lawyer that works with them. They have Travis Hansen, a former NBA player and a entrepreneur, private equity guy that's been working with them. They need that kind of structure to take pressure off Kalani Sitake. Kalani Sitake needs to worry about his relationship with his team and his coaches and his players and stuff like that. He needs other people to work on player acquisition, talking to agents, working out contracts. one of the things that they did so great last year is they had 56 players that they needed to sign to new contracts, and they went 56 for 56 within 3 days after that bowl game. That's pretty remarkable. So he does have a team there. I do think that they need even more help, and I think that they will be hiring somebody like a general manager or a president or a CEO. They need to do that in basketball also. Kevin Young needs a CEO. He's acting as the CEO right now. He needs a couple of layers of help. So the administration is looking at all this and saying, wait, we need to give these guys a lot more help than they've been getting. They need more direction. They need, more accounting things, guys with spreadsheets. They need to work this out so budgets are being met and not overspent. All of that stuff needs to take place. This is stuff that has never happened 5 years ago with NIL and revenue sharing. The whole thing is different.
Yeah, you mentioned that they move slowly, and hey, sometimes that's good because sometimes people are moving too quickly or businesses or whatever. Can you move slowly anymore in college athletics?
No, you can't, but that doesn't change things at BYU. They are slow. They're slow to hire. They have to go through so many rings to get a head coach. Sometimes assistant coaches, they have to go through an interview process that involves church leaders. It just takes a long time. And this thing that happened this week, it probably came public mainly because people were finding out about it. And of course, we wrote a story, Tad Walsh and myself, about this, and we called the university to ask them for a comment. And they probably announced that probably a little quicker than they wanted to. I think this is only the beginning of about 4 or 5 other administrative changes, personnel changes, additions, new titles that we'll see in the coming months.
You mentioned in an article that you had written again in the Deseret News that Kalani Sitake has spent the better part of a decade proving that culture, relationships, quiet persistence can still win in college football. And I couldn't agree with you more. You've been there watching and covering them forever. Why would anyone want to get him sideways? And especially since, how close do you think he really was, Dick, to taking the job at Penn State?
That's a great question. I think they came at him. They made him an offer. He was able to look at their budget. He was able to to see what they did. I think it was very close. But Kalani wants to be at BYU. He loves BYU. He's a BYU person, a former player. If you were to take a mold and pour in all the things you wanted for a BYU football coach, Kalani meets every aspect of it, and the mold would come out and say, here's Kalani Sitake. But I think that you coming off 23 wins, 23-4, 2 bowl wins. You're knocking on the door of the college football. He's got more power now in the community than he's ever had in his life. In his entire 10-year career at BYU as a head coach, he has more things going for him right now. So why not push the button a little bit and see if you can protect your coaches and your players in the future? You got some, a 21st, 22nd recruiting class coming in. Yep. Many of those guys are on Mormon missions. They're going to come back. He's going to need the resources to tie them down, to keep them in the fold. And so right now he's fighting for that. And so part of this was giving him the opportunity to have a transparency in NIL and revenue sharing, and to have a greater say in where those funds are going and how they'll be managed.
With what he may not be getting yet, it seems to me that this is not about his salary being higher, even though that when they extended him, that's going to happen. That's just natural. But this seems to be that everything else around him, he wants that to be taken care of. Is that fair to say?
No, that's absolutely true. Dave, you hit it right on the head. He asked for primarily one thing for himself, and that's longevity, a long-term contract, and they gave that to him. And there's the other things are just icing on the cake, and BYU has delivered some of those. We've seen them with with some recruiting things that they've done, bringing in Cade Uluave from Cal, and some other key pieces that they really needed in this roster. But this roster is basically built on revenue sharing, not NIL. The NIL money's been going to basketball. Kevin Young's been very demanding of what he needs, and you've seen that in A.J. DeBonsa getting Robert Wright, which is from your area, away from Kentucky to come back to BYU. What Kevin Young wants, he's been able to get. And Kalani's looking at it and says, okay, now when I ask for a little bit of money and I'm said there's not there, then you got to come up with it, or at least let's talk about it, or let's go a little further than it was last year and last winter.
You mentioned Kevin Young getting what he needs. There's no animosity between the football and men's basketball program, is there, between those two?
No, there's not, Dave. Kevin Young and Kalani shows up at his games all the time, comes out and leads the crowd in cheering, and he supports Kevin Young. He has no animosity. He doesn't care so much of the success of BYU basketball, but he wants football to be respected in the same way.
They have to be then, if it's the the house settlement money, which is that 20 and a half, 21, whatever, as you mentioned, which is the core of what they do. They have to be one of the few, like, they're playing good football. I mean, we know what they've done the last 2 or 3 years and what Kalani's built. How good can they be? Not that doesn't mean if you spend an extra 10 or 15 million more, Dick, if they get that money, you still got to be able to have the culture. You have to have the fits or whatever. But how much better could they then be?
It's a good question. One of the secrets I think that they have is, like they wanted to go after Quincy at Ohio State. He ended up at Notre Dame. But they wanted to see if they could get a 5-star receiver because they lost 3 receivers and a tight end. But that didn't happen. They weren't even in the game. They just weren't able to approach that. They didn't have the funds. But what their strategy is we're going to find some players that perhaps were looked over and needs a little bit of development and want to be here and want to be a part of this program and the culture that we're doing. And then we're going to not lowball them, but we're going to bring them in at our budget. And then, if they do well, we'll give them a bonus. If they work out and their scores are okay in the weight room and the training and the academics and stuff like that, we're going to show them a way that they can make more money. It's a culture of merit. It's a culture of buying in. And they're able to get some pretty good players like Isaiah Glasker and a lot of others. I mean, Evan Johnson could play in the SEC. I don't know if he would start, but he is the one of the best corners in the Big 12. But he could be right there for more money, but he decided that he wanted to stay at BYU, and he's happy, and he loves it. And that's part of the golden touch that Kalani has with his athletes. He can let them see a vision of what teamwork and working together and being successful, winning that bowl game, and then, hey, let's all come back. Let's fight for another round. And he got 56 out of 56.
I see in your profile, and, man, I appreciate your time. I know I've taken more than I thought that I would. You love golf. I mean, you're probably an outdoorsman. I'm not sure how much of it hunting and fishing, especially where you live, but you do love golf. Is that right? What's the best course you've ever played?
What? Pardon?
What are the top 2 or 3 best courses, or maybe famous courses you've ever played?
I played TPC Sawgrass.
Okay.
I played TPC. Let's see. I'm trying to think of the course right outside Virginia City.
Okay.
I played 4 or 5 TPC courses. I played Las Vegas National. I haven't played Pebble Beach. I played most of the great courses in Hawaii.
I asked you that because of this. I love golf. I do. And I've been fortunate based on traveling to cover events like Torrey Pines. I've never played Pebble, but Torrey Pines. And of course, there's some that you're not going to play, like Pine Valley and all of that. We understand that. But I went up on a golf trip at the end of July with 2 friends of mine to St. George, Utah. We flew from Dallas, we're in Texas, flew to Las Vegas and drove up. And first of all, the drive is just spectacular, especially when you start to get into you're in the mountains, but then you get into the mountains. And we played 5 days in a row in St. George. Now, it was hot as hell, but it wasn't the humid hot like you get in Texas. It was just hot, but it was never bad. That is, good Lord, that's a beautiful place with golf courses.
Did you play Sand Hollow?
Played Sand Hollow. I almost wore my sand. We played Legends.
Yes.
Sand Hollow, Black Desert.
Yes.
Coral Canyon.
Yes.
Which sits right at the edge of a mountain range, and there's like an old volcano that looks like a teepee. And then we on the way back Monday morning. We flew back Monday evening. We drove back to into Vegas and played the one that's kind of tricked up. Damn it. I forgot the name of it.
The Palmer course, the Palms.
No, it was in Vegas. It's in a city. It's about 30 miles north of Vegas.
Oh yes, yeah, I know the one you're talking about, and you have to have a caddy.
Well, yeah, and I'm telling you that, yeah, and then there's also one where you can the drop offs in the hills and the golf carts, and they do tell you, man, be careful about like you're going to skid right off a mountain if you're not careful. I just wanted to bring that up because that's the first time I've been to Utah in a while, and it is spectacular. And giving them a nice plug because they deserve it. But I didn't know if you'd ever played down in St. George's.
Oh, I have. In fact, I go down there every September to play with 22 guys from Scotland.
Oh,
In a Ryder Cup format at Sand Hollow for 27 holes, and it's just spectacular. These guys are so funny. They are so fun to be around. Their accent, they know the rules. Man, if you try to fudge, they'll say, "No, that's not in the rule book."
wow.
But hey, Dave, you come here to Provo on a trip or something. I'll take you to Wasatch State Park or to Hobble Creek, and these are two public courses that are amazing. You would love them.
I've got to tell you, I know that's a long way from Provo and Salt Lake City, but it was spectacular. All the amenities were fantastic, and was wondering if you'd played there before.
Yeah.
Hey, I know that I talked to Dave McCann, who's been on this show with our podcast before, and he said you need to call Dick Harmon on this. Dave does a great job covering BYU, as you know, as well. And he mentioned I need to contact you. We've had you, I think, once before. And it's great to have you on, and we'll see how this happens. This won't affect BYU at all on the field, will it?
No, this team's locked in. Kalani's done a good job of just letting this kind of play its way out. The administration's now reacted. You know, the way I look at this is the administration had the challenge to take care of a lot of these things before it got out in the public, because these things happen at every athletic department in the country.
Mm-hmm.
You usually don't hear about it. You don't see about it. So I put this on the administration to clean this up, and this is the first step in doing it, kind of like a cleanup on aisle one.
Yeah, they need to do it. I wish it all and hope for everybody that it works out. Mesquite, Nevada is where I stopped
Yes.
in a round of golf that you and I were talking about. Hey, Ed, great to have a Hall of Famer like you on the show. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me. Good luck.
You too. Dick Harmon from the Deseret News with us on the BYU power struggle or whatever you want to call it. And yesterday when the news came out that Kalani Sitake will report to a vice president and not the athletic director in Brian Santiago. Rez, do we have Coach Witten? Yes. We do. I don't want to keep him waiting. They got a game weekend, and it's been a big day in Tarleton State, and there's a good friend. We don't get to talk much, but he's an SFA guy, but he is Tarleton State's alpha when it comes to the football program. And Todd, thank you very much. I listen to a talk show. I don't listen to many, but I know that the Dallas is 105.3 The Fan broadcast from the university today, and those guys do a great job. I was excited about hearing that and all that. What's the energy level right now, Coach, at Tarleton State in football?
It's really high, through the roof. That's one of the things we do well around here, I think, is bring the energy, and we've got so much school spirit, and we've got over 3,000 freshmen coming in that are going to be new this year. They've all gone through duck camp this summer, and we've been blessed. We've had some good seasons, and so expectations are really high, and everybody's anxious for the start of this new season.
How would you describe this rise of Tarleton State, the university, obviously, the athletic department, Steve Urias, and obviously Dr. Hurley have done a great job. You've been there twice, and you've seen all this change. How would you describe it?
Well, Dr. Hurley is a dynamic president, really a strong leader, and has a great vision and pushes really hard. And so it's been a lot of fun. I look around at the facilities and all of the dorms and just the entire campus, and I think back to 30 years ago and how much difference things are. I never would have thought our guys would have been playing on television, and now it's like the last 3 games we played have been on television. And so just so many really good things, almost too many to mention. This place is booming, and we're just so many blessings.
You are now a part of the United Athletic Conference, and Dr. Hurley, we had him on a couple of months ago, and I know that was something they had to come up with a name. Do you sometimes not even know who's in your conference with all the changes in recent years?
sometimes we have a good conference.
Yeah, you do.
West Florida had a big win last
I
night
saw that. Yeah.
coming out of the Division II ranks. I think we've got one of the better leagues in the country. And so, but yeah, we lost the 2 Utah schools. We've added West Florida. So it can be a little bit confusing. That's just the times that we live in nowadays, and just kind of the way it is. So, but it's exciting. I was great to see West Florida get that win last night. I think top to bottom, we're as good as any league in the country, and I don't ever consider anything an upset when somebody gets beat in our league, and really kind of at the FCS level. So many things are so even, and so like Houston Christian won a big game yesterday. Really didn't surprise me. They've got good coaches and good players over there. They beat a ranked team in Southeast Louisiana, but yeah, it's a great league.
We have Jason Bechtel coming on at 5. In fact, Houston Christian's football coach. I've known him and that family for a long, long time. That was a great win. He told me when I asked him, because the three top 25 teams FCS lost last night. You mentioned Southeastern Louisiana, a couple of others. Is it going to be that way even more so now because of the portal? Is it going to be that's the norm and not the exception?
Well, I think it's always been a little bit like that in the FCS, minus some of the schools up north, who are the flagship of their state, the Dakotas, the Montanas, and Idahos, and folks like that. But most of the time when you visit FCS campuses, there's just not a lot of difference. And most of the time, I think the dollars that are spent are really similar. And so there's a certain amount of evenness, I think, across the country. And so you just see a lot of folks, what a lot of folks think would be an upset. Me as a coach that gets to see all these people play on film and study these teams. And I know those folks at Houston Christian are well coached, and they got some good kids there, and they can beat anybody on their schedule. And so they may not have as much depth at times or whatever, but very few surprises for me when somebody loses at our level. It's not like, Texas A&M, versus like Tulane or something like that.
Right.
Just that doesn't happen all that often at the FCS level.
Todd, you played the game. You were a hell of a quarterback, and that's when I covered you and got to know you, and you've now been coaching Tarleton, as I mentioned, multiple times, Sam Houston State, et cetera, high school even. Who had the biggest influence on you?
Certainly my coaches. I had a great high school staff I played for at Dallas Kimball, Jim Hess at Stephen F.
Oh.
And I had an offensive coordinator by the name of Smitty Hill back in those days. He was a lot of fun to play for, and he was way ahead of his time. We threw the ball really before folks were throwing it. And then, you think about the head coaches that I've gotten to work for. I worked for Coach Hess. He gave me my first job. I was a GA with Spike Dykes. I worked for Charlie Bailey and Ron Randleman over at Sam Houston. So just some of the best to ever coach. And so just I'm very, very fortunate. And I've gotten to see it done the right way. And I think that certainly has helped me.
When you played for Coach Hess, he had won a national championship at Angelo State. And I remember I think, had just graduated from Stephen F. Austin when he arrives, and that was a huge story. And he turned that, and of course, Lynn Graves eventually took him to that championship game in '89, and my God, they were so good, but they didn't win it, Georgia Southern. Was Jim Hess, he knew football, but was he more of a motivator, inspiration? How would you describe him?
So he was a great X and O guy, but the thing that separated him, I think, one of the best evaluators of talent that I've ever seen, and he always had a good roster, and his teams could always run. He had, he had a really high number of guys that played for some of the small schools he coached at go on to play in the NFL. I think he evaluated better than the other guys kind of in his era. He could see things in a guy that others just couldn't. And I watched him do it, and I sat beside him when I worked for him out at New Mexico State. And he had a real gift for that, and I think therefore he always had good rosters and good teams, and I bet there's a dozen guys that he coached at Angelo and Stephen F. And even New Mexico State that played in the NFL.
He became a scout in a way for the Cowboys.
Yeah,
And I believe, I don't know if he told you this, but I remember sitting down and talking with him one time. He's the one that all of a sudden had a little glimmer in his eye for Tony Romo
that's right.
out of
Yeah,
Eastern Illinois. He was the one that kept telling Larry Lacewell, hey, guys, we don't have to draft him probably, but this guy has the it factor. Did you know that?
yeah, I did. The story kind of goes that he, was just stayed after him and was really high on Romo and was out there to see somebody else. And the quarterback, Tony Romo at Eastern Illinois, caught his eye. And so, like I said, he just had a real knack for that. He could tell kind of, he was really important to him how much a guy liked the game of football. And I think he talked about those things before others did. And so he had a team full of guys that played really hard and loved football and loved to practice. And but I never remember him being a big rah-rah guy or a lot of motivation or, he always told us the truth but his teams could really run.
They really could. You had a great start last year. You were 12-2 last year. I know it ended earlier than you wanted. You were 9-0 or whatever, and you lost a close game to Abilene Christian. What did you learn about your team last year?
Well, we kept getting better and better. We had a great senior class. They were a team, and they enjoyed one another more so than a lot of times. They practiced hard, practiced well together, took care of each other. Probably one of the best units, one of the best, family situation, one of the best culture situations, I think, that we've ever had. Certainly we had good players and a lot of older guys. But, yeah, they were just a joy to coach. And it's a group that will kind of go down in history. One of our top boosters called me while I was on the plane after we beat Army, and he's been around for 50 football seasons here at Tarleton, and he told me that in 50 years from now, he thought that Army win would still be something that was talked about a lot. And so, special group.
That's a team that you're like the academies or Navy, of course, when Coach Ken was there. Now I guess he was over at San Jose State. Man, that's hard to prepare for them. Remember, Army had Oklahoma dead to rights and had 45 minutes of possession. What's it like to play a team like that?
Well, it's hard, and especially, I don't know if you remember, but we were out at Portland State the week before.
Okay.
And I think the best I can tell, that's like all the way across the country from one another. And so we played on a Saturday out at Portland, and the following Friday night we played at Army. And so it was a interesting week, to say the least. But I was really concerned about playing that style of offense and their blocking schemes and the way that they block low and nothing illegal. It's just a really physical style of play, and I was concerned that it might take its toll on us. But to our guys' credit, I think we came out of that game with a little bit, maybe one guy injured, and so we did really well. But our equipment truck and our equipment staff, they left Oregon after the game and stopped about halfway and got all the laundry squared away, and then met us on Thursday out in New York. So kind of a crazy week.
That I know you got to get going. Prairie View A&M. Tremaine Jackson had a team that won that conference title last year. Looks like he's got some momentum. Give me an idea of what you expect from them.
Yeah, I tell you, he's a really good coach. I've followed him. I like to follow the guys that come up through the Division II ranks, and I think he is absolutely outstanding. Doing a great job over there at Prairie View. They've got a lot of good players that, like us, big senior class, some turnover. I think both of us brought in 50-something new guys. So there'll be a lot of new faces on both sides of the field. We're both going to have a new quarterback. But absolutely, they've got a good squad. I think we're going to have a great game tomorrow night.
Just got a text from Dan Wetzel, who works at ESPN, longtime columnist, guest of the show, said he was just with you, spent some time with you. And in fact, there has been stories that have been written about you and what you've been through in life and how you've had to come back from an addiction.
Yeah.
Why now? Why is that story now?
Oh, when you first go through something like coming out as an alcoholic and getting help, really ashamed of myself for letting me get to that point, embarrassed. And pretty soon, as a football coach, it kind of kicks in that if I'll kind of quit feeling sorry for myself, then there's probably a lot of kids, a lot of young people that I can help, and really people all over that maybe I can help. And so over the years, I've learned to talk to others about it, share my story. I'm so thankful to be sober. Getting sober, one of the most difficult things that one of my greatest accomplishments. And so I want to help others, and it's hard to do that if you're afraid to talk about it. And so that's just kind of where I am. And staying sober is an everyday thing. I will have this burden as long as I live. And so, and the more I talk about it, the more I put it out there, I think the stronger that it makes me as well.
I no question. It's courageous. Every family has had that story in some particular way. And when I read that today, I was like, damn, Coach, that's awesome. I mean, it's tough, but that's awesome, man. For you to put it out there, and now everybody will know it, and they can learn from you. And some people may even reach out to you. Behind you on the board, there's a lot of cards with hearts on them. Is that what is that family? What is that?
Dr. Hurley's daughter
Okay.
makes me a good luck card every home game, and she has for almost, probably she was a little bitty girl. She's and so I just save all those things and hang them up, and so enjoy the relationship I have with her. She likes to come out to practice, and so she's just really a sweet young lady.
Todd, one more thing you mentioned Dr. Hurley, we've had him on. Steve Urias, we've had him on. Tarleton State actually runs promotional campaigns on this podcast because they're just very aggressive in a great way. When you look around, do you feel like you've not so much won the lottery, but that this is about as good as you ever thought it could be?
Yeah, I say all the time, I've got one of the very best coaching jobs in the entire country. Football is important here, and expectations are high, but so is the commitment. And it has just been a dream come true. And, as a football coach, I think that's what you pray for and you hope for, is to get to coach somewhere where it means a lot to a lot of people, and you got folks behind you. And so we certainly have that here, and I don't take that for granted. I've been around the world and coached a lot of different places, and I think for my money, Tarleton's the greatest place in the country.
Thank you, man. I'm incredibly proud of you. I was anyway, Axum Jacks, but I know Tarleton State and then your time, but what you've done and where you are, and I'm just so thrilled you've been able to tell your story. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more that tell that story for you, and you can affect some people. So thank you very much. Good luck this weekend against Prairie View.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on. It means a lot to me.
Oh, Todd, no, love having you. Thank you very much. Todd Whitten, head football coach at Tarleton State University. I did not know that story, and I've covered Todd throughout his career when he was at Tarleton and then he was at Sam Houston State. I tell you, when he was at Sam Houston State and was beating SFA, it made me, I'm not mad at him. I was frustrated because an SFA, like an All-American former player, now that doesn't always work out. And why is he there, not where his alma mater? That doesn't mean Sam Houston State, they've got a hell of a program too. But I'm so damn proud of him. I read that story today, and by Chris Hummer, and I hope this means that what Dan Wetzel from ESPN just sent the text to me when he saw that I promoted that Todd Whitten was going to be a part of this show. Maybe that's also someone who's going to tell the story about Todd Whitten. For anybody that's known somebody, for anyone who's ever been through an addiction or whatever, he said alcohol pulled at him as his football coaching career spiraled. He believed that he had it under control. His wife, Dana, sometimes encouraged him to get help, and all that did was start an argument. At that point, I wasn't going to hear anybody really. He was being, probably stubborn, in a cocoon. Stop. I don't have a problem. That's what addiction, those who have been through it and still battle it, that you want to, no, I'm okay. He didn't have very good years at Sam Houston State, and he's always been a guy that's won. And here he is, back at Tarleton State. He's been there quite a while, 12-2 last year, and then this year's team opens up this weekend against Prairie View A&M. One of the things about the job was offered to him again after his struggles at Sam Houston State and his life. He was contacted again by the A.D. Reisman, contacted him again. He said, when Reisman saw his friend again for the first time in years, he noticed Whitten's swollen face, his reddened cheeks. He didn't look like the man who twice elevated Tarleton State football. He choked up, the AD, thinking about it with emotion. He remembers challenging Whitten, telling him he had a problem. Whitten remembers the exhaustion from all the lies, not just to others, but to himself. The conversation broke through. Whitten said aloud that he knew all along, and he wouldn't admit it to himself, he was an alcoholic. That's the first thing you have to do if you've been through something like that, or if you know somebody who has. Reisman believes strongly in second chances, hired him away. And they're really good. And he's got it going. Hell of a coach. And I wish him the best of luck. And I know Dr. Hurley, Steve Urias, they're doing a great job at Tarleton State. I'll tell you this, I reached out to certain schools in the state of Texas. I was on my way back from Dallas to see granddaughter Gracie Lynn one day. And I was looking at... I don't really look at any billboards when I'm, you always have one of those, hey, look, oh, see, it works. Not that kind of guy. I don't really see much when I'm driving. And I saw a billboard for a college, and then about 5-8 miles later, another one as I'm driving back from Dallas to Waxahachie, Hillsboro, and all the way into Waco. And I saw 2 or 3, 4, I think it was 4 or 5 colleges that had their names, from, hey, come be a student here, or just an image campaign, or something. Success that they've had. Tarleton, I contacted Dr. Hurley, and contacted Stephen F. Austin and other schools and said, hey, we have a pretty damn good podcast that reaches college football fans. Could have been a school in Ohio. And I was like, why not on this show? Why not here? Tarleton was the first to pull the trigger. Stephen F. Austin then pulled the trigger. And I had others that pulled the trigger in the last week or two that are going to be a part of this podcast. Why not? And I appreciate that. Baylor contacted me earlier today and are going to start running some, I guess, image or possibly, hey, by the way, tickets for this game or that. I appreciate Jovan Overshawn for doing that. I wasn't sure that they would. And there's a couple of more that you'll see along the way. Man, Todd Whitten, how about you're just kind of going about your business. You're doing really well, winning football games in Stephenville, Texas at Tarleton State University, which has got it going. And then all of a sudden there's a national story that you are an alcoholic. And he's a very private man, too. That's one thing I should have asked him. I wish I would have asked him about that. He's very private. He's not, this is everywhere. Everywhere. And I'm so proud of him for saying, hey, I got a problem, for admitting that he had a problem, because they're, as I said, they got it going in Tarleton State in Stephenville. All right, when we come back, Zach Barnett, footballscoop.com, will have his segment. We will also hear from Houston Christian football coach Jason Bechtel on their win against 19th, I think it is, ranked Southeastern Louisiana last night. And then we have the wheel. We appreciate your time. 365 Sports. Home Place Interiors, offering what you need to dress up your home. Carpet, flooring, colors, styles, designs, from beautiful one-of-a-kind area rugs to custom window treatments that can help you put the finishing touches on where you live, where you work, even your office, not just your home. Home Place Interiors has been around a long time, 20-plus years. John Proctor is the one who opened up the business, ran the business, still there at the business, but Selena and Stephanie now do the everyday work. I met with them, it's been several weeks ago now. It was Selena, Stephanie, Katie was there too, and then John. John's a buddy that plays golf with me. He's the one that was one of two, along with Pete, that went on the golf trip to Utah with me. John Proctor opened up the business 20-plus years ago. He is there still. Customers love him. He's got his favorite customers he wants to deal with too. It's like anything else when it comes to selling something. You sell yourself, you sell your product, you can sell both. You're going to be in pretty good shape. It's always rug season at Home Place Interiors. They have the largest selection of area rugs anywhere around. And stop by, look at the inventory. They've got on display. And then I told you that John took me inside the front right, room, and had all of these spectacular rugs all over the Orient, Pakistan, where you can think of, they had them. And they're gorgeous. Home Place Interiors can help you with all your flooring. I mentioned the flooring. Wood, tile, carpet, and vinyl floor, plank flooring, and much more. And they can help you out. They can help you design what you want. They can help you find what you need. They can help you change the look of where you live or where you work. 5-star reviews throughout their website, which is homeplaceinteriorstx.com, or 523 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
It's in the major leagues for 24 years. And let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
With over 25 years of excellence in IT, Carrion Solutions is your trusted technology partner. From managed IT services to cutting-edge cybersecurity, our expert team delivers tailored solutions that drive success. Our portfolio includes products such as Veeam, Bitdefender, Microsoft, Cisco, and Fortinet. Call David Carrion and his team of experts. Call 888-522-2221 or visit us at carrionsolutions.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Hello, I'm Camille Johnson with Camille Johnson Realtors. We specialize in selling residential real estate agent all across our community, and we love serving all types of families. We have been in business at Camille Johnson Realtors for almost 9 years, and I have been a residential real estate agent for almost 40 years. And we love our partnership with 365. So thank you for partnering with me, and thank you so much to all of my clients who have made our company a success.
Score big on your next ride during the Kickoff to Savings event at Richard Carr.
Score your biggest savings of the year right now on Buick. Get a 3-row 2026 Buick Enclave and save $8,500. Or non-GM owners can save $6,750 on all 2026 Buick Envisions in stock. Get here now or go online and save thousands on Buick at Richard Carr.
Find championship savings and win on your next deal at their Kickoff to Savings event at Richard Carr.
At Richard Carr, we give you more. Pepperoni Magnifico. Pepperoni Magnifico. Marco's Pepperoni Magnifico. Classic and crispy cut pepperoni, 3 melty cheeses, all on our fresh made dough. And starting at just $12.99 for a large, it's no wonder Marco's was named America's favorite pizza chain.
This 4 o'clock hour is brought to you by Stonewood Dental, your one-stop shop for your dental needs, specializing in teeth cleaning, fillings, crowns, sealants, root canals, IV sedation, extractions, implants, bridges, dentures, full mouth restorations, and bioaesthetic dentistry. Our priority is your comfort from the moment you walk through the front door. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. It's time for the Smoak Show on 365 Sports with Craig Smoak and David Smoak.
It's Friday. Zach Barnett, footballscoop.com with me, David Smoak, 365 Sports. And Zach, man, let's start with this. I watched the scores come in college football last night, and then I had a high school game, but I was watching, there was like upset after upset from FCS to whoever, and even a team that beat a Division I team that was the first time from their level. I think this might become, and even though we saw what Indiana's done or whatever, I think we might be in for just total chaos with teams winning games that we're not expecting this year.
I think so as well. I mean, these teams completely change over the course of a year. And I know the coaches and the players spend 8 months preparing, and they do as best they can, but you just never know what you have until you step on the field across from someone else, and it counts for real. Like, you can think you're great on the offensive line, but that zero-sum game, unless you absolutely know, and you're shutting down Joe Burrow in his prime. I mean, I don't even. Joe Burrow made such a leap that I don't even know if they knew what they really had in that passing game until they hit the field and did it in that game against Texas. I mean, you just never know. And with that happening across the board to nearly every team is totally different from one way or another. I mean, the amount of schools that just bring back their head coach and both coordinators is I do that study every year. I should know off the top of my head, but I mean, it's well below 50%. So the vast majority of the sport is changing out their head coach or at least one coordinator, if not all three. So you just never know until you lace it up against someone else.
Yeah, I started the show. Obviously, we looked at the scores coming up, or North Carolina, TCU is one everyone's focused in on. But I had a 40-point, 29.5-point, 24.5-point, 21, 20, and a 15-point like underdog based on not so much Vegas, but close to Vegas, but like the S&P or SP Plus, all of them winning last night. And some of them against teams that are a division or a level higher than them. It was insane. In fact, we're about to have Jason Bechtel, head coach of Houston Christian, on the show, who beat a ranked Southeast Louisiana. All right, so what are your thoughts about TCU? I've seen pictures the last couple of days. They're in Dublin, North Carolina, Belichick and all that in that story. And it's just, let's go. What are your thoughts, Zach, about what's this sidebar with the TCU and Fort Worth Star-Telegram and not getting credentialed for TCU games? I can't imagine that's going to last for too long, no matter who might have been in the right or wrong throughout this story.
Yeah, it's a really weird fight to pick with the only daily newspaper covering you, and no newspaper is today what it was at its peak. But last I checked, there's still over 200,000 people subscribed to the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, which is, I know they have a 24/7 site that also covers them, but I can tell you right now, there's not 200,000 people reading TCU 24/7, although I'm sure they do a great job. Like, this is by far your largest outlet, and to pick a fight with it. I don't want to say it's a fight you can't pick or a move you can't do to cut them off, but because they've done it, no one stepped in to stop them. But at the same time, it's a move you can't do because everyone knows that this is going to last very long. Like, they didn't just exile a beat reporter. The entire Fort Worth Star-Telegram is no longer, as of right now, allowed to cover the entire TCU athletics department. And that's a fight that both sides are going to lose. And we all know TCU is going to cave at some point. And then in the end, it just looks stupid. Like, none of us would even be talking about a TCU safety injuring his own teammate in the locker room. Like they revived and amplified that story to well beyond what it ever would have been, as horrible as it was. It was a local story, and now they've made that a national story. And we all know that they're going to change their mind at some point anyway.
TCU blew them out last year to start the Belichick era, and I think most people feel like that might be the case again. Obviously, it's been very quiet. I say this about North Carolina. Well, of course, they have the Michael Lombardi story and Belichick's son with the health issues. But do you see in any way that after a full off season and yet another recreated roster that Belichick can discover some magic? Not magic to win the ACC, but do you still think they're going to be a mess this year?
Well, I'll go even the other way, which, by the way, that TCU North Carolina game was one of the most just shocking games I've ever seen in college football, because I was at my son's practice for the first quarter or so of that game, and when North Carolina really was taking it to them because TCU had no idea what to expect, like zero. And then once they figured it out, I mean, it was just like, I guarantee you TCU faced tougher looks from their own scout team than they did from the North Carolina starting defense. Like, it was just like zero resistance whatsoever. I can hardly ever see a Power 4 versus Power 4 game that was less competitive than that one. And the Frogs could have scored 90 that night if they really wanted to. So to transition to this year, I have full belief that North Carolina will be better. Like they've talked about the real resistance that they faced last season, getting in so late, not having the contacts in the college game, not really taking a freshman class, which all of that was self-inflicted by hiring Bill Belichick. But I think this North Carolina team is going to be better because it'll be hard to be worse, just on a player-to-player basis. But I think there's a really good chance that their record is worse. Like, they have a very difficult schedule where I could see them being underdogs 10, 11 times this year. If they don't spring an upset or two, they could be better and go 2-10.
Yeah, no, I think so. But there's that part of me. I can't imagine he just forgot how to coach football and recognize talent, but it's a different animal, and it has seemed to be a mess. I saw your comment about John Sumrall, and I love what I see from him. Even when he was at Tulane, we'd had him on our podcast, and of course now at Florida with all that they have to offer. I like the Alex Golesh hire at Auburn, and I hope Golding can continue to win at Ole Miss, but John Sumrall seems to be, and I've said this to you, a clone of what Brent Key and also, oh my God, I just went blank, at Georgia Tech have done. Clark Lee and then Brent Key have done. Same type mentality. How good can he end up being at Florida? And our expectations, they're not ranked. They were last year, and I think that might help a little bit early too.
Absolutely. I mean, I really like those comparisons. I think all those guys, they're ball coaches, but at the same time, they've been raised in this era where just knowing ball doesn't get the job done. I mean, look at Bill Belichick. The college job has evolved so much in such a short amount of time. And John Sumrall said that as a head coach, he does not know any different than your team can all leave at the end of each season. There's this constant change, and you have to negotiate and free agency, all that stuff. He doesn't know any different. So I think he can X and O and talk ball with the best of them, but also he has those secondary skills that are so important that Dabo Swinney obviously does not have. And I think Florida will be a top 5 team before too long under him, and I think they're going to drastically outperform where they were last season and outperform expectations this season.
So we're about to start, and we're going to have some evidence that I know we've all been waiting for this because of the other chaos other than the upsets I mentioned last night in college football and probably this weekend with all of the legal stuff that's going on. How much of a breath of fresh air is it for us to sit down and watch games? I don't care who it's playing. I don't care if it's USC and San Jose State or it's West Florida in a game against Southern Illinois. I just want to be able to watch some football, and then, of course, it ramps up dramatically next week.
I was very disappointed last night getting home from practice and excuse me, not seeing an active game on my television because I felt like I was missing out on the party because there was all these games going, but just none of them on my television. So I can't wait. We're going to do our show on the ticket here in Dallas Saturday morning and drive home and listen to the North Carolina TCU game on the drive home and then watch it. And I love I really enjoy the week 0. It's a chance for us to just kind of get our ankles wet before we go in head first into the pool. Where it's real football, but unless you're a TCU or North Carolina fan, it's lower stakes where you can all just kind of be a passenger along for the ride.
I can't wait. Zach, let's look at with what's going on with college football. Who is the next, in your opinion, Indiana? And I've said this before, and even Indiana, I think people have said they're the next Indiana because they're not going anywhere. Is there someone else that has the opportunity to be able to do because of a coaching change? You mentioned Summerall, Florida, but what Cignetti's done was once in a lifetime. I think Bill Snyder-esque at K-State. But is there someone else out there that's in that mid-level that's been kind of just there that you think can make a big jump?
I mean, if we're going to judge by that standard, then everyone's going to fall short of the first 16-0 team in college football in a century and a quarter. But I'm going to my colleague Doug Samuels brought this team up that has really been overlooked, that has been written off, really, that I thought he made some compelling points. So I'll steal his take while crediting him at the same time. And I think Virginia can do a lot more this season than people are expecting. For two reasons. One is they've invested. They spent a lot of money to get Chandler Morris from North Texas, who's not only a capable college quarterback, but a veteran college quarterback. And they were one of the oldest teams in college football last season and sprung up from nowhere to win 10 games and nearly win the ACC. And then this year, they've repeated that formula. They have a seventh-year offensive lineman. I thought those guys went extinct after last year, but they've got one. It's like a woolly mammoth, and he's 6'7". They got Bo Prabula, Penn State by way of Missouri, who he's probably not as good as Chandler Morris, but still a good college quarterback in that same mold, very, very veteran guy. They're going to be one of the oldest teams in college football yet again, and their schedule, there's no Miami on it. There's no Clemson on it. They play an NC State team that a lot of people are excited about this weekend in a non-conference game. They're supposed to be in Brazil, but instead will be, I think that game's in Virginia. Yep. But that's a team that I think has a greater than 10% chance of us being like in December still talking about that nobody's talking about right now. Zach,
you made a comment, I believe it was earlier this week, about if they're going to allow NFL players back and another, like a Dallas judge last night. Now you have the SEC fighting with even teams in their conference and Sankey and what can be done, kind of like with Yormark and Tech there for a little bit. It's getting kind of intense, but I guess that's the way it is when it comes to the legal business, which is something that I don't quite understand, but I'm glad it's there. But I'm tired of it. You're tired of it. Everyone is tired of it. I don't know if it'll ever be over. And maybe the start of the season allows us to take a deep breath and forget about it. But your comment about, okay, let's let a kid that played or a young man that played for the Saints or the Buccaneers or whoever come back on your roster and take a roster spot. Now, LSU apparently had some openings. But if a player's coming back and joins a college team, and that means somebody who's been with them throughout the semester, through spring drills or whatever, and August, and they get bumped, we should do a Hard Knocks type video of that conversation. How do you think that might go if it happened?
Not well. I think if that was the requirement, which of course won't happen, but if it was, then it would be a whole lot of conversations amongst the brass at the program to say, are we sure we really want to do this? Do we really want to, on our official Twitter account, release the video of us cutting this poor kid that's been with us for 2 years that we're letting go to bring back an ex-NFL player? We're going to get absolutely barbecued for this, and we'll deserve it. Then they wouldn't do it. The juice would no longer be worth the squeeze. And I'm a big believer that human problems require human solutions. I think the solution to actually ending court storming or field rushing in college sports is you forfeit the game. That would put a stop to it immediately. And I think my solution would put a stop to this. Hopefully we don't actually see this, but unfolding disaster in real time. And I think these rules that these conferences have passed this week to 6-game suspension, $60 million fine or whatever, just outrageous numbers. It's the same legal argument that guys that played at Utah that every Utah fan knows, gave 4 or 5 years to the program and said, here's who I am. This is what happened to me. And it's not just one. They got multiple. They even got Michael Pittman, the former NFL receiver. His son Micah played at Utah. And he said he felt he was pressured to play through an ankle injury that turned into that it turns out was a partially torn Achilles tendon. So it's serious stuff that I hope it's not true, but then again, why would all these people put their names to something that they know wasn't true about their own body? So, I mean, I can't predict where this will go, but I do know it has the threat to blow up 2 different football seasons. And this is stuff that Morgan Scalley and Kyle Whittingham, like, they're going to have to answer on the record, on camera about this. And maybe they're innocent of all this. I mean, let's hope that's the case, but at the very least, they're going to have to truly answer these questions and not just provide a statement to a newspaper.
Lane Kiffin is in Fanville, and the commercial almost is so it's him. Someone's trying to tell him about a rule, a law, or whatever, and he rolls his window, Bosworth, in the. I laughed my ass off on that, Zach. I know a lot of people are angst about Kiffin and frustrated and done with him or whatever, but I thought, if we have a sense of humor, I laughed. I don't know about you.
I did as well. The Dr. Pepper people do a good job of getting these guys to make fun of themselves. I remember the 2024 campaign and Quinn Ewers joking about how he was a cop in Fayetteville and said we don't need backup. So they do a good job with it. And I thought Lane, he has like 2 lines in the whole thing, but he does pretty good acting. And likewise, it got a chuckle out of me. And then also, State Farm, Kurt Signetti is going to be State Farm's new guy, and he does an even better job.
I saw that.
I encourage everyone to go find the video on Football Scoop. He of course plays himself, but he does a good job playing himself. Very deadpan, and I think it speaks to that 3 years after he's left, we're finally starting to fill the Nick Saban void, and Nick Saban and Deion Sanders won't be the only coaches occupying game time and commercial time.
Yep. We have today on the show, we already had him on with the story with BYU and Kalani Sitake and Santiago. And, man, you could see something was happening here. This cannot be good for Brian Santiago. Cannot be. This is a win for Kalani Sitake. I don't know how it wouldn't be in any way.
Yeah, I mean, when you're allegedly someone's boss, but they make more money than you and are thus less replaceable than you, that's been the plight of many a head coach in professional sports, where who's making the most money? Okay, they're the hardest to get rid of. Kalani Sitake obviously has the power in the BYU athletics department, even if he's not the top name on the food chain, so to speak.
Yep. Zach, thank you. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the games. Appreciate your time. Zach Barnett with us Fridays at around 4:30, 365 Sports on YouTube.
Many years ago, Bert Cogen Ford made a commitment, not just to sell Fords, but to serve Waco. What began in 1936 wasn't a transaction, it was a partnership built through hard work, quality, and integrity, mile by mile. For over 4 generations, Bert Cogen has been driven by Waco. Thank you for the road we've traveled together and the miles that lay ahead.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide. Affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
When you play hard, sometimes you fall hard. Sports injuries require special treatment. At Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, our team of expert doctors provides athletes and active adults with comprehensive sports medicine care, diagnostics. Whether you're in high school, college, or beyond, we'll help you get back on the field. Call on the team physicians for Baylor Athletics. Call Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics.
You were made for more. More than the ordinary. More than the expected. You were made for big moments. Made for new friends. Made for the kind of experience that stays with you. And yes, made to discover. Made to create. Made to turn hard work into real opportunity. At Tarleton State, college is more than what happens in a classroom. You were made for more. You were made to be a Texan.
I pitched in the major leagues for 24 years, and let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
From the TFNB Your Bank for Life studio. Now, it's time for the Smoke Show. Presented by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. It's time for the Smoke Show on 365 Sports with David Craig and Craig Smoak.
Jason Bechtel, head coach at Houston Christian University. What a night it was, picking up a win against 19th-ranked Southeastern Louisiana. Jason, the program has been methodical. I know that you and I talked about a year ago or so. First of all, what's it like now, today, on your campus and throughout the football program?
Well, we're still waiting to get
students on campus. We start our first day of school on Monday, so that'll be an exciting time around campus, I'm sure. And but as far as our program goes, this is when we came back in January the 11th, these were all things that we envisioned. These are all things that we've talked about. We knew that we had a talented bunch of guys in our locker room. We built that. Last year was obviously not up to a standard that I expect or what I want. And at the end of the day, I thought defensively last year we played really, really good football, and offensively we just weren't as good. And those were things that we needed to address. And I think that it all came to fruition last night. And our kids and coaches did a great job preparing. That wasn't just a one-night deal. That was everything that they started back in January the 11th all the way up to kickoff. And kudos to our kids.
They have the sushi.
This is Clem.
Like sushi classes.
Clem's not a morning person.
I just had
Or a night person. Or a people person. But he is, and I can solve this in 4 different ways person. And that person is impossible to replace. You need Clem. Clem needs benefits.
I'll be able to edit that part out because you had just finished. So you win the game. You beat them. They're 19th in the country. I got to ask you this. I was watching scores come down last night at the opening out of college football season, and a lot of FCS teams that were ranked. I think 3 ranked teams were beaten. We know now because of the portal, because of the way things are, and what you're trying to build after, again, a disappointing 2025. Do we know anymore when a season starts what a team is or isn't? And is this going to be more the norm than the exception?
I think it is the norm now. Everybody's, even talking to Frank, Selfo last night prior to the game, both of us had a lot of questions going into the ballgame of who are we? And I know that he had a few concerns about some guys that they brought in. We had some concerns about guys we brought in. I think you're seeing that across football right now. You really don't know in the age of the transfer portal. There's not a whole lot of development going on from each program to program because you're always trying to stay up in the arms race.
Right.
And I think that's one thing that I'm proud of is when you look at our starting lineup last night, 8 offensive and 8 defensive guys that started the ball game for us were here with us last year. And I think that speaks dividends of why we were able to do what we did last night.
You jumped on them. I know they scored first, but then you had a flip the script in the second quarter, and then I'm sure the momentum and the confidence. Could you see your team gaining that confidence as that first half started to get when you took the lead 17-7 at halftime?
Yeah, we really did. We had the ball a total of about 5 plays in the first quarter. I thought they did a phenomenal job keeping the ball away from us. We didn't do a whole lot with it, and but we told our defense guys, just trust it, just give us time, let us get going, and they did. And then I don't think we punted the ball again until the fourth quarter, and so we went. Offensively, we played really, really good football, and defensively, created 2 turnovers. Thought instant replay, missed 1, and then but we forced six fumbles and recovered 2 of them. Then we had an interception. So defensively, we were doing a good job of attacking the ball, and the biggest piece to the ball game that we had talked about was we had to tie or win in the special teams. And in years past, they have always won that special teams battle and kind of created a turn in the events in the last 2 meetings that we played Southeastern. Well, this year we won in the special teams. We tied them in all phases, and then we blocked the field goal, and that's where the momentum really shifted. And that changed the ball game.
So, your quarterback, Cutter Stewart, who had a nice night, obviously almost ran for 100 yards as well. Here's one of those players. You mentioned a lot of guys were with you last year, but he was in junior college a year ago, correct?
Yeah.
And so tell me the story, because he played a lot for you in 2024.
Yeah, started 6 ball games in 2024. And with the age of the portal. Came in and just said, Coach, I think I'm going to enter the portal. I think that I can go bigger. I think I can get paid. And reality hit for some. And we kind of took a hard stance that if you entered the portal at that point, we weren't going to bring you back. And he ended up going out to Cisco Junior College, and he and I had stayed in contact. You know, it's still one of those deals where we're still building men. You still build relationships, and
right.
And Cutter and I had a good enough relationship that when the season was over, he just said, Coach, if there's a spot for me, I made a mistake. Houston Christian is where I'm supposed to be. It's a good institution. It's a good place. And I just said, Cutter, hey, listen, here's the deal. We've got 5 on the roster right now. If we take one, I'll consider it, but we're looking for a certain type of quarterback. And we wanted a running quarterback. He said, Coach, just give me the chance. I can run it. And so here we are. We brought him back in the spring and really had a 3-man race as a quarterback battle going into the camp, and throughout camp still had the battle. But really, we intended to play a couple of quarterbacks last night, and he just got on a roll. And you know, you don't break momentum, and he handled it really, really well. And here he is. You know, that I think everybody's chasing the portal and everything. And he was one that was mature enough to say, hey, Coach, that's where I'm supposed to be. And we had enough, you know, smart, you know, I guess forward thinking about ourselves that we didn't let pride get in the way either of bringing a guy back that might have been looking for something different at the time and realize we were a fit for him as well.
What does it mean to the program, Jason?
Well, you know, I think it's for us right now. I think it proves that we have kids that can play. You know, I think it's a huge step in the right direction. Obviously, in 24, we beat McNeese. It was just ranked in the top 25. I think this is probably the biggest win in program history.
Yep.
But at this point, you know, we're about to hit the 24-hour mark, and you know, we've got to make sure that we ground ourselves again and understand that we still have not arrived. There's a lot of people who think it's a fluke. There's a lot of people who are telling us that, hey, those guys didn't play their best ball game. They overlooked you, and they're not giving credit to our kids. And that's where I get frustrated. But at the same time, at this point, it's all rat poison. And it's all stuff that can hurt you if you don't handle it right, you know. So we hit the 24-hour mark here in just a few hours, and we're gonna bury it and move on and get ready for the Rice Owls.
You brought up the Bill Parcells rat poison. I remember when he used to say that when he was coaching the Giants, and then when he was coaching the Cowboys. I know a lot of coaches. He's not the only one that invented that. But last thing, Rice does not play this weekend. You've now got a game under your belt. Had you won or not, how much of an advantage can that be that you've got one under your belt and you have something on film, and you guys may have gotten some of the kinks out?
Yeah, I think that's it, David. Is we've got a game up on them where typically you see the most improvement from game 1 to game 2, and I think that's the advantage that we've got. We're also in a little bit of game shape now. Our kids know what it's going to take. They know, hey, we can do this at this speed and this level. And I think conditioning is going to come into play. You can never get in football shape unless you play football. And I just don't think you can mimic those full scenarios in a practice as much as you want. You know, we had 3 scrimmages throughout fall camp, and we still had issues that arose, whether it was situational stuff or even game shape issues that still arose last night. So you just never get there until you play it. And but we're excited about the opportunity.
Hey, man, congratulations. I saw that score. I'm doing a high school game, and I started to see some of the scores come down, and I saw where there were some, you know, ranked teams in FCS. I love chaos. I mean, I not all the legal stuff, not that. Good
That's right.
God.
That's right.
But the chaos of watching what we see with Houston Christian, among others that got wins last night, Central Arkansas had a big win last night, and others. Jason Bechtel, head coach at Houston Christian, with me. This is 365 Sports. It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Make this the summer event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get summer ready in a new Jeep Wrangler Sport. Your choice, 0% for 36 months or just $33,848. Want more truck and more fun? Check out the 2026 Jeep Gladiator Mojave. Your choice, 0% for 36 months or save $10,000. Take the top off and hit the road. Allen Samuels Jeep.
Come by, let's be friends.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
This 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson and Brad Wilson in Waco, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe, with an individualized approach to addressing your financial needs, including education, savings, planning for retirement, and protection strategies. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, making sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. It's time for the Smoak Show on 365 Sports with Craig Smoak and David Craig.
Thanks to all of our guests today, including Jason Bechtel, Houston Christian. What a great win for them. And then, of course, Zach Barnett. Appreciate Dick Harmon on BYU and the power struggle with the top of the athletics administration, with Kalani Sitake, of course, now only talking with the, vice president, rather than the AD, Brian Santiago. And also appreciate Todd Whitten. What a story that is. I covered him. He was the quarterback at Stephen F. Austin. He's been around, but he is, man, Tarleton State's got it going up in Stephenville. Appreciate his story and sharing that with many people. So here is now time for the wheel. If you were forced to live inside the universe of one of TV shows or movies for an entire year, which one are you picking? If you were forced to live inside the universe of one TV show or movie, it would not be Jurassic Park. It would not be, the Jetsons. Rez, do you remember the Jetsons?
I sure do. Grew up watching that.
Oh my God, I love that. It's still back in those days. It appears to be pretty innocent. That's what it would be. That would be the Jetsons. I would love that. And if it wasn't the Jetsons, I think it would be the Flintstones. I'm not kidding. I'm being dead serious. Such another time when things were so innocent in the world. At least we think they were. I mean, Fred was not a bad guy. Barney was pretty cool, pretty good friend, wingman. And Wilma, right? Betty, I mean, golly. So that was what it would be for me. Thanks to Andrew for putting together the wheel for today. And thanks to Rez, Michelangelo Flores running the mothership. Garrett Ross was a part of putting pieces together earlier today. Craig is back on Monday. It is the first full week of college football. We'll have a lot to get to, and we'll look at evidence finally at the end of the weekend with games that are being played. For you, our audience, we appreciate you every day, methodically growing. If you have not subscribed, please do. Pass the word along to friends of yours. And when you're at a college football game or a tailgate, let everyone know that we are here every day at 3 o'clock on YouTube with 365 Sports and The Smoke Show. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great weekend. Back Monday at 3. This is The Smoke Show on 365 Sports.